Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 89 of the Titanforge Podcast. I'm Dratnos, joined by Tettles and Trell as always.
Yeah, what up?
And this week, returning special guest, Yumytv AKA Growl, AKA Pet Zergling, AKA, what's the paladin name? Fragility?
Prodigy. AKA Growl.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, friends. It's a pleasure, as always. You guys said that you wouldn't have me on until I reached rank 1 healer in the world, but it looks like that's never going to happen again, so you guys settled for number 2.
Wait, did we say that?
I think Dratnos did specifically. The last time I was on was when I hit rank 1 in BFA after like the junkyard and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, I remember that.
That'll happen again.
What, Junkyard 31?
Good times. I think there was a big 20. It might have been even the 29. We had world first sort of keys in that season 4.
Yeah, that was a good season. Those are some good times. Man, do you guys ever think back to Freehold? Wistfully?
Yes. That was
I
a
do
good
all
dungeon.
the time.
I miss. I did a King's Rest run yesterday.
I
Or
saw
not yesterday. it was
that. Why
earlier
are you
this
doing
week.
that?
Well, I just kind of missed it, you know.
King's Rest?
The worst part is it's storming this week, and so I go into King's Rest and I do the first pull in the bird room, and there's tornadoes everywhere, and I'm just like, wait, it's storming here too.
How did you have a BFA key?
Oh, I didn't do a key. I just admitted
He did a
zero.
normal
Oh,
dungeon,
okay.
yeah.
I was doing the trying to get the mount because it was the only dungeon mount that I don't have, and I got to Machimba, but I couldn't do it because Machimba just puts you in the coffin and then resets every time. So unlucky.
Unforge.
I have a question. What do you think about Nerf Tank's team eating 24s for breakfast?
Jeez.
What do
That's a
you
harsh
think about them
question.
doing 25s as warm-up keys?
We're just not on their level. No one is really on their level.
Feasting
they-
on 26s or dining on 27s?
Don't they do like 28 solo while picking up girls or something? Is that the end of the copy pasta?
Yeah. Yes, that is in fact exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's man, I cannot wait to see this great push thing as it
There's
starts
so
heating
much
up.
drama. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Well, it's not even like drama. It's like everybody wants there to be drama. All the viewers and stuff are just so hungry for it.
There's gonna be drama. We're slamming everyone. Everyone's got no chance.
Oh,
Are
so you guys are gonna win?
Easily.
So okay, who's your team for great push?
Our team for Great Push, it was like soft announced, but it's Dorky tanking, Chow, Junkrat, and then our third DPS is Yoda actually. And then I'm healing. So that was a very
So you guys been
fortunate
playing with
pickup
Goop on
for us.
live, right? But
Yeah,
he's
Goop
probably
is
not eligible still. I
Yeah,
think.
he's a non-competitive format player currently at this time.
Dude, how is that guy? It's like 6
dude.
months you have to be unbanned for. How has that guy been ineligible for like 5 years? Was he in one of the states that couldn't play?
His Boomkin got banned during a World First Toldagor a year
Oh,
and a half
right.
ago.
I remember that. Yeah,
Mid-run, and it just got unbanned like a couple weeks ago. So he has like Oh, 5 months that's left right. of He has a purgatory, second I fucking think. Moonkin. I forgot about this. Yeah.
Unlucky.
Yeah, that was extremely unfortunate because I swear for the last like 2 years he's been unable to play MDIs and like kind of wanted to.
There was some shit with a tree in BFA. I think there may have been something with RMT. I'm not 100% sure. There was that shit with the name change.
Okay, yeah. Anyways, I hope that I hope
We're
we will
giving
see
people
him-
the drama. People want the drama. We're giving it to them. Allegations slung out left and right.
It's not. Is it allegations?
Okay, sorry. Tettles has confirmed all the things that he said is truth.
True. So
When he got banned, that wasn't really an allegation.
yeah, that's true. Blizzard would
Allegedly.
never ban anybody for anything they didn't do.
I don't know if he did it or not. I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying he got banned for it.
Anyways, I guess that means he'll be eligible in what, like November finally to do esports stuff. That'd be cool. Hopefully by then there's something cool that he wants to play and he actually can.
And
But
hopefully he doesn't get banned again.
yeah, that's true. I'm sure.
You never
I'm sure
know.
that's what'll happen. Is like right before he'll just get banned for some unrelated reason.
He's got a name change back to Gapezilla.
Mm. Anyways, this is not the topic of our show. The topic of our show is we have some 9.1 stuff to talk about, but the reason we have Growl on our show this week is we wanted to talk about how to play around / with / in assistance to your healers in Mythic Plus Keystones, because that is something that can make your life a lot easier, can make it a lot more likely for you to time a key. It's the kind of thinking as well that makes it a lot harder for you to die, being just aware of what's going on with your healer. So that is why we brought on a seasoned healer voice to talk about that. But that will be later, because there is a tremendous amount of 9.1 stuff to get to. However, before we even start with that, we do want to cover the question that we answered right at the end of last week's show, which has stirred up some further discussion, where I think that we potentially like to revisit it, and also maybe get Growl's take on it. So the question was, how did you find your Steady M Plus group? What did you do when someone needed to be replaced? And our answer was basically, it was focused on how to replace somebody without them getting like mad. When I think that a lot of the question as well is like, how do you identify whether somebody like needs to be replaced or needs to be talked to, or needs to be like, you need to decide whether or not you guys need to part ways, rather than just jumping straight to when you already know what is going to happen then. So I don't know, Charles, do you want to give any thoughts on this question?
Well, I think when you have to replace a member, it goes in like several different scenarios. One of them is someone that you're not personally friends with. I think you can let down pretty neutrally, or just like don't talk about it with them, just move on. But if you're friends with a person, if you're a guildie, I think it's definitely worth visiting why you have to replace them, or explain like, hey, the rest of us have a different goal in mind, we want to move on, but we still want to play with you on occasion. There's just so many ways to approach those kinds of things. I think we just covered only half the ways.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I think that it is legitimate when you are like lobbing somebody from anything to not be honest. I think that is a actual strategy that people reacted like that is unthinkable. But I mean, I think that there is a large set of people. I think most people are not going to get a lot out of you like constructive criticizing them when you're lobbing them. I think that
absolutely, yeah.
It's something that you do need to evaluate the person. Like, I think there's two things you need to think about is like, would they want to like talk right now about things they could be doing better at this moment where I'm lobbing them, and also are they likely to like get angry, get spiteful, get mad at me if I don't handle this as diplomatically as possible, which is something that does happen. Like there's particularly among M plusers, that if you're somebody who can push M plus for a lot, you have a lot of free time. You don't want somebody with a lot of free time that is angry at you, because they can potentially make your life a little bit more annoying. That's something that's happened to me before. It's not something
true.
You want to invite if you can avoid it. So I wouldn't blame people for trying to avoid that by not saying like, you suck. Here's how you suck.
I think there's
also
not
just
a lot
like
of
a really
reason
hard
to...
situation.
Oh, sorry,
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say there's not a lot of reason to be honest, but I think the one important thing is that you do it quickly. Like anyone who's been a part of a lot of Mythic Plus seasons has had the situation happen where it's like, all right, here we go. It's push week. Like it's Tuesday. I'm logging in. Oh yeah, I got a weapon out of my chest. Like, okay, here I am. I'm sitting here in town. Like, all right, nice. My tank's on. Can't wait for that invite. Hey buddy, how's it going? And then you realize that, some other person that plays your class is in their group, and you're just like, and it's, you gotta lob people. Like it happens as a part of a team. But if you don't like this person, if you think this person sucks, like let them know ahead of time. Let them try and find another group, because if you just, no one wants to be that person that draws the short straw that has to tell the person that, oh look, you're gone. So what always happens is no one says anything. Then Tuesday hits, and then it's like, oh, by the way, you're gone. And it's like, if I'm okay with, lying, and you don't got to tell a person they suck, but like, let's say a lot of times this is what happens. You have a week, things don't go well, people are upset, people need to be lobbed, justice needs to be had. Like, okay, then that next week, like, okay, Wednesday, Thursday, like in the tyrannical week, the week that you don't play, you're like, okay, we're probably gonna, like, okay, the dorky classic that he always uses is, why don't we try playing with Gape this week? Or why don't we try playing with this person this week? And whenever you hear that just means like, oh, somebody's lobbed. Or somebody's like, let's try playing with Ellie Shaman this week. Like, yeah, okay, that guy's lobbed.
Yeah, or the classic of, you have the 5-person group chat, and then you get invited to a 4-person group chat, and you're like, oh.
Yep.
Oh, no. Yeah. That's yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that is definitely like it's scummy to not tell people that they're getting lobbed. I think it is a lot less scummy to be dishonest when you're lobbing them. I think that it's much more important that they know, like, hey, next I need to start looking for a team. I think that's really, and it's really hard. I think a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people will let somebody just kind of they'll just never talk to them again, or when the person whispers them, they'll just be like, oh yeah, we're playing with somebody else. Oh, didn't notice.
I think it's really important as a group member to support your friends as well. So like in the example where, okay, Dorky says he wants to play with someone else, right? As a member of this group, like I need to either stay, like I really hate when people don't pick sides and they try and be neutral. Like if I like this person and I don't want him to be lobbed, then I should say something about this person. And likewise, if I think that this person sucks and I want to play with someone else, then I should stand behind Dorky and I should talk to this person as well and be like, I agree. And, maybe again, right, you don't have to necessarily, you can skirt the issue a little bit, but don't, at the same point of don't throw in your boy at the wolves, also don't throw Dorky at the wolves too, where you make the one most important person who doesn't want to be the bad guy go and tell this person to F off when all of us are quiet and none of us say anything,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
like
exactly.
when we have these situations where someone needs to be lobbed, even if I'm not the person that's saying it, I try and get in there in one way or the other just to make sure that, hey, we're a group, like we're sticking together. This is a group decision. This isn't just X person hates you or thinks you suck or whatever. This is our group and we're making the decision together.
It's hard too, because like at some point you have to decide that they need to be replaced, and it's like not fixable as well. Because like if it is fixable, then it could just be a talking to or whatever. But like once you're at that point where somebody needs to be replaced, like I think, like you said, making sure that it's swift, no matter what you decide, making sure that it happens fast is more important than anything else.
Well, yeah, at least that you don't just ghost somebody. Yeah, I think
that ghosting somebody can be an appropriate solution in some circumstances.
I mean, if you tell them and then they keep whispering you or whatever, then okay. But I don't know. I feel like people have a right to know. It depends though. I guess it depends on how exactly your group is formed. If you form up every day and there's no like assumption that you're going to form up again the next day, then okay. I guess you just don't whisper them again. I don't know. I think that is something that we still haven't discussed too much, though, is like, what do you do mid-fort week as things are starting to go bad? And like you kind of have an inkling of like somebody is underperforming. Like how do you, before you've decided that they're getting lobbed, like how do you try and resolve that without that having to happen?
I think you always stick it out. I don't know. I think you always stick it out.
There are hot holy paladins in your area, and I'm sure you can find them if you look hard enough.
So okay, you're talking about doing a midweek lob, but let's say you're not at that point, right? Like so let's say like how do you try and make it so that not only do you play out the rest of the week, but like you avoid having that lob situation, right? Like how do you try and help somebody stop underperforming, or do you just not bother attempting that?
You don't, unless the one thing I've learned about life is like especially the older you get, you don't try and change people at all. Like it's one thing if this person is like a really 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 good friend of yours, it's your roommate or it's your brother or something, and like you guys are, you're not even gonna play the game without him or whatever, but just like, if this is just a random person on the internet, like you don't expect them to change. You don't join a guild that's AOTC that's killing only heroic bosses and expect, all right, we're gonna grow together and we're gonna kill all the mythic bosses next year. Like that's the dream scenario, right? You would love everyone to improve and be like, hey, here's what you're doing wrong, stop sucking, and then they just immediately fix it the next week. But in reality, that just doesn't happen. And I think usually you just try and stick it out, and it depends on the severity of the issue, but like almost always there doesn't need to be a lot said. Like Dranos talked about not being honest, but like the reality is if you're lobbing somebody, the reason that you're doing it is because you can get somebody better. Like nothing needs to be said. Like
it can potentially just be that goals are different as well, and like desire to improve is a lot lower from.
I mean, that's just another way of saying that you suck, right? Oh, my goals, you know what I mean? Like either the person is insufferable to play with and they have a bad attitude, and in that point you don't really care about, right? You're not writing up the Titanforge podcast, dear Dratnos, how do I let this person down, right? These are people you tell to leave immediately, right? This isn't who we're talking about. We're specifically talking about people who that you can get somebody better, and that's the only reason, right? And that's why it's like silly, the dorky line or whatever of like, let's try playing with X today, but really like what needs to be said? Like nothing needs to be said. If If you're lobbed, it's because the people think they can get somebody better, and that's it, And in the middle of a week, if it's really like that bad that you just know that at a drop of a hat you can just replace this guy instantly and get somebody better, I guess. But in general, I think unless it's really, really bad, you should try and stick it out.
Yeah, I think that general point of like never build any kind of plan assuming that any other person is capable of change is actually a really good one, because like there are some people out there who will change based on your actions, but for the most part it's not something that's in your power. The person whose ability to change that's in your power is you, not anybody else. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you can identify that somebody else is in that rare category of that. People. I strive to be like that. To be able to change based on feedback from other people, but it's not a common thing, and people think they're like that, but I don't think very many people are.
I think people are also very slow to give like the criticism that is necessary for improvement as well.
Because people react so badly
until it's too late.
Like people just react so badly to that kind of criticism. It's like it's just self-defense to not to not put yourself in a position. Like people they'll just call you a jerk if you're telling people how they're playing bad. Like that's what'll happen is you'll get the bad end of that. Anyway,
in reality, you just want to time that fucking key. You don't actually.
I think that it's worth noting though that all of our takes on this come from the position of like pretty high end groups. I think that if you're doing like a lower end key push group, there's a good chance that the success of the key is a lot less of the important thing than the friends you made along the way. In which case, your priority structure should be different. So do bear that in mind. And we don't have that much experience with like what a push group at a much lower level, a much more casual level, shall we say, that plays less often.
That's a good point.
I think that it is worth noting that the strategy in that situation is likely to be pretty different. So, but if you do end up getting to the high end, I think these thoughts are applicable.
You have to think about.
I was actually thinking back to my.
Oh, I have a good analogy. Sorry to keep interrupting, Troll. You have to think of a push group as like a relationship. It's like a girlfriend, and like a low level key push group is like a girlfriend in like the 9th grade, right? Like you think it's true love, you're literally together for a week and then you're playing with someone else the next week, right? Like that's how push groups end up being. So when you're in the 9th grade, like you feel like this is the most important relationship of your life and this is your push group and you're gonna make it all the way to 24s, but in reality, like at least that was my experience when I was coming up. Is like not in high, I mean in the push groups, not in high school. Not in high school.
Oh, okay,
in the push groups. It was like you play with a group, and sometimes a group is only together for 1 week. Like you do a couple of pug keys together, you're like, hey, let's play next week. And then you play a week, and then whatever happens. People gotta go. So I think like the experience of lower level push groups is that the shuffle is real and you're playing with different people like every single week, basically.
I think there are a lot of groups that start from guild though. And this is what I was trying to think of for the scenarios that we didn't really cover last week. And this is such a huge topic, by the way, that we could spend an entire episode on it because the social system is insane with WoW. But for the guild groups that start off doing keys and the 5 people from the guild just are like, all right, let's do keys one day and see how it goes. Maybe we'll like it. They start getting to 17s, 18s, and then maybe one member starts falling behind. I think that's the situation I'm really thinking about targeting because those people are friends probably, all 5 guild members and trying the content out at the same time. But one person is definitely going to fall behind eventually, and then that's the hard part where you want to stay friends with them and stay guildies, but let them down softly. And I think we did cover that in lots and lots of other situations today.
Yeah.
So
I mean, ultimately depends on expectations. Like if you're just trying to vibe and do like whatever your goal is, right? If somebody's not meeting the goal, then either you need to change what your perspective is on it, or they need to be replaced to match the rest of the group's perspective. And how you do that,
it's pretty similar to like guild hopping as well. If you as you people are climbing that guild ladder, it's a common tension of like I want to play with the people I like that I've played with before versus I want to do better. And a lot of people do have that kind of dream of like, okay, why don't I just take my current guild and we'll get better ranks? But in practice, that's not the way.
I mean, the best way to get a better ranking guild is to leave your old fucking guild and join a new and not become an officer in your shitty guild. That is not the way that you actually gain ranks. You leave that guild and you join a better guild.
My guild has kind of done this where over the past couple of years we went from like US 20 something to US 7, but that involved a lot of churn. We make a lot of lobbing of friends happen in this guild. It's not something that's easy to do. It would be easier, I think, for most people in that case to just go and join a guild that was already better than try and like shape their own.
Yeah, and I mean,
and there's no avoiding the fact that you're going to have to stop playing with friends at some point.
I mean, obviously, an example, like my guild, like we have very little turnover as a whole, but we just kind of accept the rank we get, and we don't like we do want to be like the best we can, but we don't care about the rank at the end of the day. We just want to do like the ultimate best we can, and we don't have a lot of roster turnover because we're not striving to be something that is like Dratnus's guild, where we're jumping from US 20th to US 5th or whatever.
All right, let's move on to our main topic because we have a lot to talk about this week.
Yeah, this might be long. I think
this one may run a little long. We'll see. I'll potentially crack the whip a little bit on discussion of any of these.
Well, you got Path
topics.
of Exile to play or what?
No, I gotta go get my 5G upgrade though. That's happening today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I didn't know Dratnus was into whips and shit. Learn something new every day.
So first thing to talk about here in 9.1 is the seasonal affix has been data mined. Placeholder, Shadowlands Season 2 affix, defeat the Jailer's forces to gain cool powers. This is the only thing I think that is confirmed about the affix, and then the article includes all of the Terra Grew raid boss fight anima powers that you can get, but I don't think there's any kind of link that between these abilities and the affix, TBH. I think that a lot of people have kind of implied and read this in, including Wowhead, but I really don't. I would be shocked if this was like the pool of powers that you could get from the
This was mega
affix.
clickbait from Wowhead.
Yeah.
I feel like so many people came in my chat and was like, Growl, did you see all the Mythic Plus powers? And I feel like it was almost to the point of like a little bit of bad journalism, if you will, to just be like, here's the new Mythic Plus seasonal affix unveiled. And then they put all of the raid powers in the article. Like, come on. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, but I think they would have done a lot more justice to be like, we don't know what the powers are. Here's a link to the raid powers. Maybe this is it. But they literally are pasting in the raid powers on the article that has no content other than there are powers in Mythic Plus. So I personally don't think these are the powers, but who knows? It could be, I guess.
I think I tend to agree. I also think that like if there are this many fucking powers and they are RNG, it will make for an incredibly bad system. I will probably not play the season very much if the powers are completely RNG and your run is predicated on which power did I get. Also, I guess people came in my chat and were asking me about, they thought it was similar to Emissary of the Tides or like Beguiling with how you killed the fucking mini bosses. And whenever I read shit like this, I think it's more similar to like Awakened and just like the pillars and killing the Jailer's forces like that. But also, if it's similar to Beguiling at all, not a fan either.
Yeah, so these are all literally, we don't know anything about it except defeat the Jailer's forces to gain cool powers. I think that you can infer from cool powers it might be like an anima power style choice.
Yes.
But, they could just have like 3 choices, like literally only 3 choices, and you choose between those 3 every time you get a power. Like they could have something like that where there's not this kind of RNG system associated with it. We have no idea how many powers you're getting over the course of a dungeon. We have no idea what the Jailer's forces are like. I would say, though, that, if there is a system where, there's powers, unless they are really, really well balanced, I think it would be extremely likely that, like, whether you time your 26 or not would be based on whether you get, a high roll of powers or a low roll. And that would be annoying. That's not something that I think would be a good experience.
I hope it's something like you have like a spec specific one, a class specific one, and then like a generic one, and you just like pick between one of the 3 every single run. Like, and it may change like on a week by week basis or some bullshit, but I think that would probably be the best case scenario. And like, I also, with how this is set up, I would be interested to see if you skip them or not, because Shift types in chat, another season of skipping them in MDI. I wonder if they're going to bring them like into the fucking end boss, like they pull into the end boss similar to Awaken mobs or whatnot, if you skip them.
Yeah, you got a nice APM check of choosing your power when it pops up quickly on the end boss.
Menuing.
Yeah.
Menuing, that'd be sick.
This is kind of cool concept there of spec specific ones. Like you could maybe use that to buff underused specs in M+, right? Just give them OP powers relative to the good specs, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's like by far the coolest part about the affix and the design right now is now they're giving themselves a toolkit to buff classes only in Mythic Plus, right? Like let's say there's a lot of classes that aren't very good. Instead of trying to give them a damage buff that might make them OP in PvP or raid or whatever, they can just give them an insane power, right? Give Mistweavers a crazy damage power. That way they're still doing, like, they can do competitive damage to Holy Pallies, but at the same time, like, they're not busted in,
Growl.
Well, they're not good in any other form of content, but
I regret to inform you that Fire Mage is going to have the best DPS power, and Holy Paladin is going to have the best healer power. I don't make the rules. This is just how the game works. I'm sorry to have to tell you about this.
On that Holy Paladin note, we have the Holy Paladin Venthyr Legendary as spoiled. Radiant Embers. Ashen Hallow's duration is increased by 50%, and if you leave its area, its cooldown is reduced by up to 50%, proportional to its remaining duration. This
Nuclear Bomb has been buffed by 50%.
Is unbelievably strong. I mean, okay, the thing is, Venthyr Holy Pallies already have a really good legendary. The Mad Paragons one is a lot of damage too, so the opportunity cost is pretty high, but still, this seems insane. So
but to see how it plays out,
yeah,
it's one of those things where a lot of people are like really excited for the new Legos, but I haven't really put much thought into them because there are not really that many new Legos. So what's going to happen? As soon as the patch hits, everyone's going to make their Covenant Lego and you're going to get to try it, right? So there's not a lot of reason to worry a lot about what's coming with the Legos. So I haven't even really put much thought into it, but it's going to come down to how it feels to play, right? Like,
yeah,
standing outside of your Ashen Hollow in a lot of situations might be really, really weird, right? Like, imagine you're trying to use it on a boss and do damage, but you can't stand in the Ashen Hollow. Like, are you gonna have to tank the boss on the edge or something, or how? So I feel like it might seem really OP, but it might actually be really, really clunky and unplayable. It's something that you just have to play it to see.
I mean, on top of that, like, you're already wearing the legendary where Hammer of Wrath extends your wings, right? So like, it has to be better than that by a significant amount and more playable in a certain way.
Right, like that is the Venthyr Holy Pally Lego right now. Is Mad Paragon.
Mad Paragons, yeah.
True.
We'll have to see. Yeah, all the Covenant legendaries I think are likely to fall victim to just being worse than other ones, but I'm sure that a couple will make their way into the meta.
Do you think so? I kind of expected them to make all of them OP so that people have new stuff to play with. That's kind of what my expectation.
Most of them don't look like they're better than the current Bis ones, though.
Oh, you're just saying off of current tuning.
Yeah, just off of what we've seen so far. Yeah, true. They may end up buffing all the Covenant ones, but except for a couple of cases, I usually have looked at them and been like, okay, this is worse than the 9% increase of the best one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how I feel about it, because a lot of them interact with either cooldown reduction or just direct damage of your Covenant, and very infrequently is it, like you said, more than just 9% flat damage from whatever other legendary you're already running. So it's pretty hard to slot in. We
also have an update on the scoring system for Fortified versus Tyrannical week. So M+ score is Raider.io score coming into the game. And from Ian Hazakostas' Doyu interview, there's actually a lot of good stuff in this interview, but the part that we want to look at in particular is that the M+ rating system may count Tyrannical and Fortified separately to encourage players to master both rather than just the easier one, whichever one that might be. Of course.
Who's to say?
It could be either.
It's there's a long storied history of Tyrannical being the best push we could fix, but we're not really one to make assessments on meta.
We've seen the tooltip for how this looks on PTR as well, where you mouse over and it'll tell you your score for a dungeon. It'll be best Tyrannical and best Fortified will both show up there. So my initial reaction to this is great. I think if this is done well, this can be a way that rather than making 22 Tyrannical as hard as 22 Fortified, they can just make 22 Tyrannical count as much as effectively 24 Fortified or whatever, because you need it for score just as much. So I
don't you think that's a very, very dangerous road to go down?
Yes,
because you're basically saying, okay, now you're saying that you're just moving you're changing the goalposts, right? You're saying, okay, well, what if it becomes a situation where the hardest affixes, that's the push week now? So now there's still the same push week phenomenon where you're only playing on 2 weeks, but you're playing on Tyrannical, Bolstering, Necrotic, Prideful, Spiteful, Tyrannical, King's Rest, because that's the one that gives the best point to level ratio or whatever.
But so part of it too is like the keystones still interact with one another in terms of level that you're going to be getting out of your weekly cash. So it's not the fucking, like, you're gonna get like say you're able to do 27 Plaguefall one week, and then you're gonna get 26s out of your cash. But then say it's the week after that is literally bolstering Necrotic Tyrannical. You can't even do a 25 on that week, like, realistically.
All right. So yes, there's still problems when Tyrannical and Fortified are imbalanced, but most of the problems between Tyrannical and Fortified being unbalanced come from the fact that you are incentivized to do the keys at the highest level possible, right?
Sure.
And so you're incentivized to play on the week with the highest level possible, and now you're incentivized to play on the best Tyrannical and the best Fortified weeks. And the difference between the best Tyrannical week and the second best Tyrannical week is a lot smaller than the difference between like the Fortified weeks and the Tyrannical weeks on balance. I think that this is like, obviously it would be good if they could if they could balance the game, but for the most part, the only level where the actual like key level matters is for gear, and that stops at 15, which is well below where Tyrannical and Fortified start to really feel an impact.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest, Tyrannical is less fun than Fortified as a whole, and then all of the fucking Tyrannical affixes that are like stacked up with that, bolstering and necrotic and shit, are like all really, really annoying to play. It's not even that they are harder. That's not necessarily my point with them, but they are just obnoxious to play. It's like bolstering is inspiring, but somehow worse.
There's a lot of bad Tyrannical weeks. That's definitely true. But I think that a lot of the reason that Tyrannical is unfun is that the keystone level matters, right? Like you find yourself doing like a 23 that week and struggling through it when you could do a 25 the next week and like breeze through it relatively compared to that. And you're just like, okay, what's the point of this? But I think that once there is a point of it, that will make things a lot better.
Okay. So question about reward structure for this, because I don't know if we hit on it too much. They haven't really talked about any rewards. What would be like sufficient for you guys? Because in my mind, I was looking at like numbers, and like PvP is like 0.1%, but that would be like 16,000 people like per region who do Mythic Plus, which that's not super reasonable. Like what would be like a sufficient reward structure for higher end players? And then like obviously they have the stuff for the 20s, like the portals and shit, but should there be more?
Like a top X
100
score?
Top 200 or some shit per region, per faction.
I think that'd be sweet. I think
so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the number should be. My answer would be whatever I get to should be the exact cutoff point for the most prestigious rewards. And I'm sure that most people would agree with me on that. So,
I mean, they need to put in more rewards. The reason you play an MMO is because you want to do cool stuff and then show off the cool stuff that you did to everyone else who can't do it. Like, that's what MMOs and RPGs are all about. Like, you can pretend like it's about character development and, customization. No, it's about doing cool stuff and then going to the town where all the other people didn't do the cool stuff and then being like, look at me. And like the more things that you do in the game, and you can add that for everything, right? Mythic Plus, PvP, raid, even like professions, like anything you can do that with, right? So like that, in my opinion, that's one of the foundations of RPGs that they lack a lot, especially with Mythic Plus. So yeah, they should just shovel those types of rewards in the game. Top 100, top 1,000, top 10, top 1,
whatever it is.
Keep putting them in.
Yeah, well, I think that this game doesn't have like a lot of prestigious rewards in general, and the ones that they do have, okay, so like rank 1 arena is cool. Cutting like what Hall of Fame fucking rating is just awful. It is absolutely the least enjoyable like prestigious reward. Nobody is ever like, oh, hot fucking dog, we got a Hall of Fame raid this tier, let's get it. It's just like all the same. It feels like it just getting cutting edge is the same as getting Hall of Fame. It feels like.
What do you mean? There's way more cutting edge guilds than Hall of Fame.
Our guild can't get Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
We're cutting edge
Hall
every
of Fame?
Yes.
Do you want Hall?
If you ask anyone, if you ask everyone in our guild, yeah, we're right. I mean, we're biased because we're like right on that border of like rank like 115 or rank 120 or something. Where if we just did a little bit better one week, we could have made it. But it's like, I mean, I agree that it definitely doesn't feel great to be Hall of Fame. Like, you don't get much for it. I agree with that for sure, though.
Oh, Fame Slayer owns, man. Hall of Fame is great.
On the precipice of getting Hall of Fame, really, really want it. You know, like my 9-hour guild got it this tier for the third time, I think, in a row, and they were like ecstatic about it. But I can see you 4-day guilds raid 12 or 16 hours, be like, okay, we got somewhere in the top 100. It's fine.
Fame Slayer's attached to your fucking guild, though. It's not even attached to your player.
Yeah. you need the cutting edge, and then you need to be in a guild that has Hall of Fame to wear Fame Slayer. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but I don't know. I mean, I think that the Hall of Fame thing is good. I think that what you're talking about is like for people well above that cutoff, there maybe could be another thing that they're then looking at, right?
I don't know. I think it just like doesn't translate super well, like to in-game prestige. Like, yeah, there's a website and shit.
Well, you've got title, you got Fame Slayer. People walking around with Fame Slayer, I think there's prestige associated with that.
Is it?
Especially,
Maybe.
Well, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there is. Just go out and do some pugs and get to know the more casual player base. You'll see it a lot.
Yeah, they'll be like, "Whoa, Fame Slayer! Wow,
you're so epic."
If you're
One
like
thing we
rank
haven't
one,
talked about, though,
if you're rank one, you should own. If you're like Ellismir's group, you should just like shine gold when you walk around towns. If you're in complexity limit and you're a raider, you should just shine gold.
Dude,
like it just should be that cool. Like you should be Exile. Like, oh my god, it's Ellismir, it's Nerf. You know, like that's how it. If you're the best team in the world, everyone else should be like, oh my god, that guy's the best in the world. It shouldn't be like, okay, well I have this Raider IO add-on, and this is a different shade of pink that's a little bit higher. So these 3,500, like they need more reward.
Holy fuck, that guy's 3,600 IO. I've never seen a number that big before.
This guy's Raider IO scores a slightly lighter shade of blue. Oh, I want that.
Yeah,
it's actually like what a lot of us wanted. At the
honestly,
start
it does. Yep. It does motivate a lot.
See how important it is, though. We actually know. We're like looking at those shades of blue. Like that's how important it is.
But yeah, I mean.
But yeah, the reward stuff is important. I don't think we've even talked about yet how the portals actually got put in for timing 20s. I mean, we just briefly mentioned it, but it's pretty exciting that they're actually starting to do stuff like that for.
I'm glad that they're doing it. Yeah, I hope that they start balancing the dungeons a little bit more closely sometimes, because you have shit like Theater of Pain.
Yeah, it's true that there are a lot of groups that could do a 20 halls that can't do a 20 theater, but it's not that many. I mean, most with a little, improvement a little bit. Once you can do 120, you can do them all. We also have new updates to Torghast in 9.1, and this is the thing. I think that this is the main thing. Yeah. If you guys remember back in BFA, Warfronts came out and everybody was like, "Oh, this kind of sucks," and then they just sort of abandoned them and they stopped making updates. But Torghast has come out and everybody's been like, "This kind of sucks," and so instead they are revamping it with a new scoring system, and this is going to fix the problem for sure. But actually, it is kind of a cool scoring system. So how it works is that you earn up to like 5 stars. I guess they're called gems. And the more you get points for completing the whole, like killing as much stuff as you can, spending as much time in a hot streak as possible, which is just when you're killing a lot of stuff fast, and doing it really quick. And if you get 4 or more gems, you unlock the next layer. So unlocking the next layer is no longer something you can kind of slowly walk through a Torghast and do, which is going to be something that might gate people for a little bit. And then there's also, if you can get all 5 gems, you can go and do 2 more floors of Torghast in that run of the Adamant Vaults, which I don't know exactly what the reward for that's going to be, but yeah, that's Torghast.
I didn't even see that gem thing. I remember in beta they had it so Torghast was timed and you had to go fast, and everyone was like, this is terrible, like just let us chill. And Blizzard is like, okay. And then 9.1 comes along and they're like, okay, so here's our new unveiling. We have this great idea. Torghast is now timed. And it's just like, wait a second, didn't we just go away from this?
It's like a soft timing though. So okay, here's the thing.
Okay.
It's
Torghast on beta was also fucking. You did 80 floors of it and shit. That was it was timed to do fucking all the way up to floor 84 or something.
It looks like though. Okay, so you use the gems to either you need to do a 5 gem run if you want to get to the Adamant Vaults, which is unclear what the rewards for that are going to be, or you need to do the 4 gem run to unlock the next layer. But once you have layer 12. The score and the gems are not associated with the rewards coming out of the run, which is something that was initially speculated. So you don't have to care about min-maxing your score for the purposes of legendary farming once you have gotten what you want out of like unlocking the highest level layer, and whatever the Adamant Vaults has, that might be something you care about. It's unclear. And there's a new currency, Soul Cinders, that you get from layers 9 through 12. that you use to upgrade your legendaries to rank 5 and rank 6. You do still need the Soul Ash as well if you've got a legendary that you haven't gotten to rank 4 before. So that's cool. But you get those from a layer 12 run, you earn all the Soul Ash and all the Soul Cinders that you could have gotten, just like it currently works. So
what was it that you tweeted out last night?
Let me find it. Hang on.
That was a good tweet.
It was a very good tweet.
I'll put it up.
I think it encapsulated my thoughts on the system perfectly, actually.
All right, here's my tweet. The year is 2025. Patch 9.3 is out, and each week we collect Soul Ash, Soul Cinders, Soul Embers, and Soul Coal from Layer 20 Torghast for reasons we've long since forgotten. Which
that makes sense because 9.1 will probably be in 2023.
Yeah, there's a couple of the year for 9.3 is a multi-layer joke. A lot going on there.
Travis' humor is very intricate and not for the people.
I'll explain it to you later, Tettles, don't worry.
Shut the fuck up.
Dude, Tettles, you gotta get that knee-jerk reaction out of your system. You gotta work on that instinct. That could get you in trouble.
Oh, yeah, it would be terrible if I said something like that to you on a broadcast.
Have we told that story? I don't know. Anyways, let's talk about the Ian interview with Preach as well, because I think there's a little bit to get in here, and then we will move on to our main topic eventually at some point. No promises. So this was Preach's interview with Ian, which is great. You should listen to the whole thing. Very good there. But there's also the Wowhead summary of what was said. The TLDR, from my perspective, was basically nothing in here really. Nothing big.
Stuff in the future is coming, but nothing in 9.1 is actually happening.
Tier sets are coming in 9.2. What's the goal with Covenants? They're happy with it overall. The Covenants are cooperating, but if they still get really mad if you help the other ones, of course. Has the item level variance changed in Shadowlands? No, one item level should still be about 1%. What did you... this was extremely controversial in my stream after it was said. Have you guys had any people disputing this notion? One item level being about 1%?
I think, okay, so and this coupled with the it's a player skill issue, I feel like they approached this question incorrectly, because this isn't about PvE. I think that this is about PvP, which is the fundamental problem with the item level disparity, and it's very, very apparent whenever people have major item level disparities in PvP because you're actively playing against other players. And then Ian's response is that's just frankly an issue of skill whenever people are getting fucking murdered by people 15 or 20 item levels above them, and which with zero recourse regardless. But the one item level should be about 1%. I guess I don't know numerically whether that's actually the case for PvE specifically. I think that probably checks out numerically, but maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, the problem is there's all these other factors that are correlated with item level.
Better players have higher item level.
Yeah, so at this point, better players have better item level. Or even if you try to do a historical analysis, players now have more soul binds and conduits and stuff than we did when we were 200 as well. All these other kind of systems that have increased our power level over time. Also, kill times get faster, which leads to people doing more damage at the same rate that your item level is going up. So a lot of analysis of logs will suggest that it's a bigger difference than this, but if you do a sim of a character and you just change its item level, it does end up being about 1% for each change.
I mean, I think that probably checks out. I think, like you said, there's a lot more that goes into it. And notably, whenever you're talking about PvP, though, one item level does not fucking equate to 1%.
It's because it's 1% damage and 1% health, right? And it's okay, well, now I'm doing 20% less damage and I have 20% less health, right? And so it's a double whammy there. They kind of multiply together. I agree. I think the PvP thing, I mean, it's also just we've had 2 expansions of PvP scaling kind of coming in and helping us out, and now it's not the case that if you're a fresh alt you can ever kill anything in PvP.
1400, you're fucking stuck. There's a wall of boosters at 1200 to 1400 that are just fucking gatekeeping people.
Yeah,
that's true. I was doing 2s a couple weeks ago, and it was playing against 2400 rated players every single game at 1600. I was just trying to do some too.
You may actually queue into some fucking gladiators, like riding their mounts and shit. Like,
yeah, they were. It was insane. It was the first time I'd ever done that, and like just playing some casual arena with some friends.
Yeah, I don't know
which
what
I
the
do every now and
is.
then during certain seasons.
Yeah. Anyways, is there anything else from this interview that we wanted to cover? Healer DPS inequality? Something
Growl?
they are actively discussing.
Yeah, the biggest problem with the healer DPS thing is that it's just very, very raid focused. So the point that they made about HPALs, and like you could use the same argument with Disc Priest, which isn't true right now, is that the damage is passive, right? As an HPAL, like, okay, here's the thing about raid healers is they don't DPS. They don't care. All they're trying to do is get like a high score on Warcraft logs or something. They don't actually care about killing the boss. That's true with everybody that raids, not just healers. But so the problem is that when you're a holy paladin and you're karate chopping your keyboard trying to get a high score, you also do a lot of damage. Whereas if you're a resto shaman and you're karate chopping your keyboard, you do 0 damage. And that's like partly an inequality in raid. But the issue is that, okay, let's say you're a resto shaman trying to karate chop your keyboard to do a lot of damage, and a holy paladin karate chopping your keyboard to do a lot of damage. A holy paladin still does way, way, way more, right? The big issue is not that the damage is passive in most forms of the game. In raid, it's a little bit of an issue, but the problem is that Holy Paladin's damage at max capacity is so much higher than every other healer, and I'm a little bit worried that they're gonna either gut Holy Paladin or not fix the problem when they've identified the problem is that the damage is passive, not that the damage is just way too much. Like doing 25k DPS on the first boss or whatever with a whole, like that's the problem, right? There's no series of buttons you can press as a Holy Priest to do even half of that damage. And if anything, Holy Priest or Resto Shaman should be doing more damage than Paladin, because Paladin's doing passive damage all the time, whereas Holy Priest or Resto Shaman, like they actually have to hit damage buttons that do nothing for their healing.
How do you feel about a Resto Shaman who does 63 DPS on Sludge Fist? What would you say to them?
With 2 flame shocks and 1 lava burst?
Yes.
And then you wipe it like 0.5% or whatever?
I would say 63k HP, yeah.
63, yeah. I'd say you probably should work a little bit harder.
It happened to me.
You should work a little bit harder.
Is this something?
But the thing, that's my point, right? Like, that particular player doesn't care at all about killing the boss. They're actually just trying to get a high score on healing or whatever. Like, come on.
Yeah, I do think the passive damage thing is a big problem for raid healing, but it is not something. It's not, I think, the core of the imbalance in Mythic Plus in the same way.
Yeah, and like Growl said, dude, like if you're actively doing damage globals, like say you're in cat form as a Resto Druid, even not like dots as a Resto Druid, because that's really fucking passive. But if you're in cat form as a Resto Druid, if you're actively casting ability like Lava Burst as a Resto Shaman or Flame Shock, or you're actively like casting Smite as like a Holy Priest, like that shit should translate to you doing effectively more DPS than like the Holy Pallies, the Mistweaver Monks, the Disc Priests that do gain something passively. But it's set up in a way that it's like not even close right now, because
the big disparities. Here's the big disparities in healers and raid right now. The healers that do passive damage and the healers that have raid wide DRs. Right? Not every healer is created equal. Here's the problem. What are the healers that do passive damage? Disc Priests, Holy Paladins. Who are the healers that have raid-wide DRs? Disc Priests, Holy Paladins, and Resto Shamans, right? And I mean, okay, I'm okay. Then switch it up, right? Give Druids and Mistweavers the raid-wide DRs, and then give the other ones passive damage, and then that's the trade-off you take. Like, take AMZ, take it off of DKs, put it on Mistweaver. It's anti-magic miss now, and then they have the raid-wide DR, and then,
Dude, like, well, I mean, part of it, too, is that, like, Holy Paladin and Disc and Resto Shaman, like their throughput is effectively the same as those healers that don't even have the fucking raid-wide DR. Yep. Like if you're healing with a Resto Druid, okay, yeah, they may do a little bit more throughput than you, but they still may just get fucking beat out by throughput by the Resto Shaman and the Disc Priest for no other reason than just like, I mean, healing is like a team game, and it's like not all, like you said, not all healing is created equal in the same way, and the damage reduction cooldowns are always going to be the most important thing.
All right, let us move on to tip of the week, and then we'll talk about the main topic after only 1 short hour of show. So, my tip of the week is that there are morning raiding guilds out there. This was just, do you guys remember when I was talking about the metagame, and I looked at like US or World 1000th guilds to like show that Vengeance Demon Hunter was, something you saw all the way down? and it wasn't just like something you only had to do if you were top 100 or whatever. Well, it turns out one of the guilds I landed on was a morning guild, and people from the morning raiding community actually got in touch with me and let me know that there's a thriving scene for this. So here's a little tracker they have, and the first guild ever, actually, a morning guild that's at least tracked here, got Siren Athreus down earlier this week. So big congratulations to them. That's fine. Of Area 52.
This is clearly on NA.
Awesome.
This is NA morning.
NA
morning.
Yeah.
Well, because it's not morning in other regions at the same time. Obviously, Tettle's time zones. Come on.
Okay.
For me, they would just be like afternoon guilds or whatever. Anyways,
I can't stand you.
Here's a list of the guilds that are tracked here. I'll put a link in the show notes as well to like a Discord if anybody's looking for a morning guild. If you want to raid, but you can't raid evenings, you can raid mornings. This is not my kind of time schedule. You'll never catch me in any of these. But actually, maybe
what do you mean? You're still awake for these.
Maybe if my sleep schedule gets so degenerate that it's kind of pushes through the other side, I could raid in one of these guilds. But this is very cool. So it's nice to hear that there's a community around this time, because I know that there are people that otherwise couldn't raid. They get to raid as a result of this. So that's my tip of the week. I'll put it in the show notes or in the description later. So anybody watching live, just check the YouTube video later, and there'll be a Discord link to their community. Trell, what is your tip of the week?
Mine has to do with dungeons as usual. This week, it's about the last boss of Necrotic Wake. I think a lot of people know this, but for anyone that doesn't, his mechanic that does the shield every 30 seconds or whatever it is, maybe it's 20. That shield does pulsing AoE damage to the group, and it increases the longer that it remains in the game. So like as soon as you break through the shield, it stops the damage. And I think a lot of people don't know that because it's not a big deal until you get up to like 18 to 20 and you can start feeling the damage. But you want to play around that boss for the whole dungeon, like saving the hammers, giving them to DPS players so they can use the crit buff they get from going downstairs during that fight, then using the hammer to break the shield with a huge burst of damage. And like using DPS cooldowns or like DPS healer cooldowns like Pally on the shields is also a good thing to do and prioritize around just so you can kill that boss without worry.
How do you feel about throw cleavering the shields on Nalthor, Growl?
Jeez, usually the throw cleaver just goes into me and I die and I'm an angel. That's like the thing on my stream is anytime I do Necrotic Wake as a priest, everyone just spams the Bible thumb.
Angel thumb.
Angel thumb.
Angel POV.
It's a good one.
In Growl form again. That's unfortunate.
All right, Growl, your tip comes to us in the form of a clip, which is
I'll go over it if you want to throw it up on
sure.
Real quick,
it's playing now.
So a lot of people have been talking about this. You can actually skip like a lot of the area in Theater of Pain on I don't know what side this is, the Barrows or whatever. All you need to do is go to Gorchop. You go to Gorchop, and if you can pull the boss and live long enough for the first chain, it'll actually just chain everyone on your team down to the boss immediately. So let's say either it's Inspiring Week and you want to skip all this stuff, or if your teammates are monkeys and they just pulled a bunch of random stuff and you have way too much count, you can actually just skip a lot of this stuff if you go into the boss room and just pull the boss and just live. You can do this with a lot of classes. You can do it with Mage, with Ice Block. You can do it with Pally, with Divine Shield. So in this clip, you can see I just pull the boss and just run around and just like use stuff. And then eventually the boss will use the hooks. I don't know exactly how long the range is, but it'll just hook everybody down into the boss room. It's a little scary, but you can see everyone just grabbed down there.
Yeah, it's a fantastic little thing to know is possible, but it's hard to figure out how you can use it for profit, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to determine like how it's best used because some of the trash that's in that area is like not exactly the most efficient. But there's also other trash pulls that you would rather skip in the dungeon, and like with Prideful being the fucking seasonal effects, there's always like bunch of routing concerns around that effects as well.
It's a good tool to have in your toolbox though, because you can still pull some of those trash mobs. Like you don't have to after you kill Gorchop, or even I guess it'd have to be after you kill Gorchop. You could go and grab some. And I don't know. I mean, like there is trash. There's a lot of creativity potentially possible. So just knowing you can do that is really good.
I mean, this strategy is definitely best used in no voice 12s that you find through LFG, and then you just say, "Hold on, wait one moment, I'll be right back," and then they just sit there and don't know what's coming, and then they just get gripped to Gorchop.
Yeah. No, then you just accidentally pull the gas bag and then you die, and then the gas bag runs at your team. Let's be real, that's what happens.
Watch this.
You forget that you can't get through with just regular druid stealth. So then you spawn the fucking dudes, and then they all global aggro to the rest of your party that's standing there waiting, and then they teleport to them and kill them.
It needs to be an invis pot. Yeah, if you're just walking through in stealth, the bridge RP spawn event will break you out and we'll get everybody in combat, right?
This spot where mage and viz, I think, are the only options.
Okay, yeah.
And everyone has to be in invisibility at the same time.
Interesting.
Nobody can be visible.
I wonder if rogue, like, I wonder if you vanish, if you time a good vanish right as it's spawning, it could work.
Probably, but rogues can't time a good vanish on a pride, so I can't expect them to time a good vanish on the
This is so messed up.
Oh yeah, so fucked up.
I'm now a rogue, by the way, so I'll be taking offense at anything aimed at rogues.
You're not playing Windwalker anymore.
I'm now rogue. I was
trying to decide one too many times.
I'm not trying to get my team rinsed. You know how it is. Okay.
Will JPC have to pay you out some subs if you beat him in the Great Push?
I don't think there's any danger of that happening.
PVC.
All right, let's go to Tettles' clip of the week, which also comes from Growl. So what are we watching here, Tettles? This is also on Vorchop.
So recently we saw Growl make a really good play, but this is whenever Growl's team likes to troll him. So if you notice on screen, Growl has a threat change icon that pops up whenever he gains threat from some mobs. And you can see he pans his camera away very quickly to see what has happened. And then the mobs teleport to him. At this point, Dorky is screaming in voice, "Oh God, res him. Please res him." But Growl, not one word is murmured. He is not going to say one thing to his team the whole entire time. And he's just going to let his team think about what they have done and the reasons that they have killed him.
I forgot the boss resets too. After all that, the boss just resets at the end. We pull everything through the floor. So what happened, I believe, is our Moonkin used trees on the hooks, and then it spawned trees on the roof, which pulled mobs above us. Is I think what we decided in hindsight was what happened there. So we trees on the roof and then pulled mobs through the floor into Gorchop's room, resetting the boss.
Incredible.
I love that. It's just because it's attacking you, and then you just like are so fucking dead. You just don't even care anymore.
The best part is the Shadowlands skip. Like when a mob snaps to you this expansion, you can't taunt it. That thing is evading for 5 seconds.
Oh yes.
So you're just dead. Yeah, they have mostly fixed snaps, at least with that technology, although not entirely. All right, let's move on to our main topic. Growl, as our expert here, will be largely the guide. The topic is how to play around your healer in keys. So this is things you can do to make your healer's life easier, or to, live by being aware of what's going on with your healer. And I think this season in particular, a lot of this does kind of coalesce around the Prideful Affix in particular, because that is so healing intensive, and decisions about healer cooldowns and DPS cooldowns and all that are really important for whether or not you can live on Pride, especially depending on which healer spec you're playing with. As Holy Paladin has kind of risen up in the meta, that's a spec that if you don't have any cooldowns to commit to a Pride in a high key, things get pretty sketchy pretty quick, right?
Even in like a fucking low key.
I have people asking, like, struggling with healing Prides at like 16s and 17s when it comes to Venthy or HPAL, because like you ideally don't want to Ashen it too often, but like if you don't have CDs, like Paladin just doesn't really have AoE healing. Like you have
is that an issue of,
and that's it.
Is that an issue of low DPS though? Because like I feel like you should just be able to.
I mean, it's a mix of everything, right? Like that's the problem that happens a lot of times with those questions. It's just like, well, like the tank is taking too much damage, the DPS are doing too much, like you're moving too much, your rotation's bad, you save you the right cooldowns, right? Like, it ends up being a mix of everything. So yeah, like you should be able to heal through a Pride.
You go faster in lower keys, and you don't have the CDs on Prides that you would normally in high keys as well sometimes. I mean, that's probably not the case a lot of times in Pugs, but it could be.
Mages never combust Prides in low keys either.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that at some point too, because it's actually like a pretty big deal, is that people talk about that a lot. So the idea is like you combust the Pride at the start of the Pride so that you can get the combust up during the buff. And so what happens a lot of times is either A, the Pride is going to be really short, or B, like the combust comes up halfway through. You don't actually want to combust the end of a Pride. Like that's terrible. Like, if you're combusting the end of a pride, you should never be doing that unless you're going to die. Like, and that's true for like almost
Correct.
every healer CD. Is like a lot of healers are like, oh, my DPS don't use CDs. Like, well, you should be using your healing CDs for pride and then using the DPS CDs for the pride buff, right? And as a healer, I think partly is being able to communicate like, okay, you need to combust this pride or we're dead. And you have to have that understanding of like, but in general, like I see a lot of mages like getting hate for not combusting prides, but there are plenty of situations where you don't want to combust the pride, right? Just because you see us do it every time, that's because we're lining up every pride with combust, and also every pride lasts 50 seconds, 55 seconds, even if we combust it.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. So if you were playing with a healer that's vocal and it's like telling you, okay, you need to use damage cooldowns on this, obviously that's really good. But a lot of the case, you're not actually playing with a healer like that. Is there any way that you can like know without the healer having to say that you might have to use cooldowns on a pride?
Well, so there's two different kinds of prides that are like quote unquote hard prides, right? Number one is going to be when there's something really, really hard after, right? Let's say you're doing Hakar, especially Tyrannical, and your healer wants to save CDs and he can't use everything, right? Or wants to save damage. Well, that's going to be a harder pride, right? As a boomy, you need to be more willing to heart heal. You need to be more willing to press health potion, all that stuff, right? So that's like the most common hard pride is when there's something hard right after. Look, like if I'm saving my
All of them in
Ashen,
DOS, honestly, dude.
if I'm saving my Ashen or like a big CD through a pride, it's not to just blast it on 70 cats and just do 100 over. Like, you know, that's not what I'm trying to do, right? If I'm saving my cooldowns as a healer, I'm doing it because there's something really hard after. So that's the first one. Often is how the pride starts. So for like Miss is a really good example of that because all prides aren't created equal. Like you don't even know what pride you're going to get. You may kill one dragon and then the pride spawns and everyone's at full HP, or it may be a 5-pack and you kill one guy and the pride spawns and then there's, you know, there's all these guys running around and there's frontals and there's a spite, you know, your holy paladin's running for their life from a spiteful or whatever. And it's like if you go into a pride and you see how is it going, you know, is there going to be bursting? What other affixes? Like a lot of the times the affixes actually play a huge deal. If there's a bunch of mobs and there's even just like storming, for example, makes it so hard to hit the pride and like heal as a paladin. And so like how the pride starts can, you know, if you start the pride and everyone's at half HP and there's like still mobs alive, like, okay, this is going to be a hard pride. Like your healer is healing and not helping at all with damage, and they might not even be able to heal. But if it's like, okay, everyone's chill, everyone's full HP, like it's a clean spawn, you're going to be a lot less likely to have to like blow stuff that you don't want to use.
Yeah, I mean, another great example is like Pride. In like people play fucking Pride straight into the masks in DOS, and it's just like, okay, I guess this is just we die if you don't like completely allocate your cooldowns perfectly. You may just wipe to that. That pack and that pull is really scary.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. So in some cases, it's like, I guess, planning. In other cases, I think just like tracking your healer cooldowns as well can be pretty useful. If you're aware of like when their Ashen is, when they're using it, if you're aware of where their wings is and stuff. I think that this is good for the entire group, but just having the ability to see when the cooldowns are from your group is really valuable also. And you can, in some cases, particularly when you start playing with good healers, you can kind of predict when they're going to use those sorts of things. And also, I think if you don't see any of those things rolling, that's when you want to start being really, really interested in using your own health potions and stuff. In general, I think, though, that health potion, it's better to fire it off when you don't need it too often versus to not fire it off when you do need it. I don't know, Growl, do you have a take on when DPS players should health potion if they're low on health?
Just often, yeah. Especially like as the pride gets low. Like don't be greedy with it and like wait till the very last tick. Because a lot of times if you're on the very last tick, like I'm 100% trying to save you, right? Mm-hmm. So like ideally it's like, okay, this pride hurts, everyone's at like half health. That's just a great time to like pop health stone or health potion, pop bark skin or whatever, right? Like it's not like, oh, let me wait until I'm 1% HP to ice block, right? Because a lot of times like a mage gets to 1% HP and then I lay on hands them and then they ice block and it's just like, oh no, or you know what I mean? Like I think communication there is important too. Like it's, but a lot of times there's like an inverse relationship where the harder the pride gets, the more communication is required. But then the more communication you're doing because you're doing higher keys, then the less communication there is in pugs. It's like, well, that pride's probably, you don't need to use every single defensive and every single health potion personally, or perfectly. But just get in the habit of just like pressing stuff. Again, like if the pride's at 20 stacks and it's not gonna die, like it's not gonna die immediately. Like, okay, maybe we got to start pressing stuff here.
What are your thoughts on things like Ancestral Guidance and like Heart of the Wild and Vampiric Embrace and all of those like external
super
uses?
good. I mean, so for a pally, like you can't think of these things like especially hard healing as like, oh, I'm catering to the pally so that he can ashen all the cats, right? A lot of times it's a means of survival. Like if you don't heart heal, we're gonna die. Like I'm not sitting here as a pally holding my cooldowns like, wait, okay, now the boobie's gonna heart and now I could just save every that is like I'm blowing everything to try and live this pride, so it's not a matter of like you're doing it to help, like the holy paladin needs this or you're gonna die. And like, yeah, you want to use stuff ideally late into the pride. Sometimes it can be hard for DPS, but there's really no excuse for bad defensive use or like bad VE use or anything like that on a pride. Like the damage is very, very predictable. It starts low, it ramps up, it goes to 20 stacks. Like whenever I see someone like alter time when the pride is at 3 stacks or like press bark skin or like the pride spawns and immediately they just use VE, like, okay, buddy, like you just don't understand what's going on in World of Warcraft right now. Yeah. Like your healer is judging you. If they're tracking that at all and they see you alter time at 2 stacks or like VE or whatever at 2 stacks, like you're being judged. Just wait till like 15 stacks or when the pride's at like 33% health or something.
Why are you altering it like 5 stacks? That'd be so weird.
You don't know. I do a lot of I pug a lot because I play every healer and I do weekly keys. Oh yeah, you see it all. You literally see the pride spawn and everyone will just, oh, I gotta pop a defensive, it's pride. It's like at 1 stack and it's just like, oh no.
I think one thing that helped me a lot get it more survivable was thinking about how healthy the rest of the group is as well when I'm trying to decide whether I need to pop a defensive. So like just in kind of an abstract case, like if I'm at 10% health and the rest of my team is at full health, unless I know that there's like a damage global coming at me right now that I need to, health pot to survive, I usually will just not press anything because like I'm the only person that's hurt, right? Mm-hmm. But if I'm at 10% health and the rest of my group is also at 10% health, that's when I'm like, all right, immunity, health potion, whatever else I can, because like the healer, can only do so much right now, unless they, have a big AoE healing cooldown right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of think as a tank as well. This is something I learned a lot as when I was tanking in keys at the start of the season, was that my tankiness is heavily based on like whether the healer needs to be healing other people right now or whether they can just dump into me, and that's that applies to DPS players too, though. So being aware, like it's kind of a DPS cliche that you don't really look at the party health bars, but being aware of that can really inform like how much healing is going to be available for you versus how much you're going to need to fend for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, there's shit like mages need to alter time, like high health, like especially like even on any ability, they need to alter at high HP. So like they have to be topped right before they alter. And so like that after they press that, like after they get topped and they press that altar, then you're probably going to be receiving the rest of the healing because more often than not, or like the tank will be receiving more healing, or what everybody else except for the fucking mage will be healed at that point because he already got topped. He's an altar. He's going to heal himself back up to full. And so that's a bad time for you to use your defensives. Whereas like after the altar goes off, then you're probably better off using your CDs there as well. Or like potentially even before. It just kind of depends.
One thing I want to talk about with prides too, on the topic of like pugs, that I see so much is stop moving with the pride orbs.
Holy shit.
Stop moving with the pride orbs. Like, okay, this is not how pride orbs work. The pride orbs do not work. You move out and you immediately do a 3-second omega geometry calculation where you just pinpoint the exact location that you need to stand. You just stop moving. Because, okay, what happens, and if this is hard for me, it's got to be hard for everyone else too. Like, I'm concentrating on health bars. I'm looking at who's got defensives up. I'm looking about what cooldowns I need to use. Like, I'm not always staring at the field and like figuring out what everyone's doing. Like when the orbs spawn, I look over real quick. I see where the orbs are. I move into a safe space, and then I go back to tunneling at health bars or whatever. And if you're moving around during that, you're constantly dragging my eyes away from the things that I need to do to like figure out what the hell you're doing so that I can live. And for some reason, pugs have this idea. I think all pugs are like predicated on just being afraid of being flamed. So they like sit there and then they see, oh no, the tank, and they're looking and they're like, oh no, the tank's not gonna move and he's gonna get hit and he's gonna flame me and I better
That's his
move.
problem.
You know,
Yeah.
but that's what you like. If you can make a little tiny micro movement to like make it easier to not be in the line of like your mage's rune of power or the tank or whatever, but you should do that immediately. And like in general, you should not be moving. And if someone else gets hit, whatever, you know, don't be afraid of being flamed. Like that's the protocol, because you make it way harder for me when you have the pride orbs, I move out of the way, then I start casting, then you move into me, and then I move, and then I was like, I just lost 3 globals trying to like figure out, you know, playing musical chairs with this pride orb, and then you're like, just trust me, like. As a healer, you don't trust DPS. We're not especially if you're a demon hunter with momentum. I don't trust you at all. If you're momentuming around with the pride orbs,
Killing spree.
That terrifies me.
Killing spree is the fucking worst, by the way.
Killing spree too.
Something also on top of that is like, dude, just try to get in a fucking diagonal line after the first orb. Like the first orb comes out, your healer is not actually even sweating to heal normally. Like whenever the pride's at like 3 stacks, and you can like see the first boast, and then you can just like, if it's possible, get in a diagonal line. You won't have to move for the rest of time, and it's really easy to be able to deal with it like that.
On the flip side of that, I think it's important as the tank player in a pug that you don't move the pride away too far from whoever has the crosshair beams. Like if you're moving away from your melee players, it's probably gonna make them want to move closer to the pride. So you just need to move in a way where it doesn't move the actual mob, but just keep yourself safe. I think that's really important to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a holy pally, right? If I'm needing to heal and the pride is at 20 stacks, and then you drag the pride 1 inch away from me, and then it's like, yeah. I mean, the reason I stray away from that is because it's hard for the tank too, right? Like if you get hit, that's almost like an immediate wipe, right? So you really don't want to get hit. So I give the tanks a little bit of leeway in that, but yeah, you don't want to move the pride when possible.
Your group needs to know if you're about to move the pride. Like, you better be moving it. Like, try to move it early if you're going to move it at all. If you're moving it late, everybody has to be really aware.
All right, let's move on. Let's see, Growl, which of these bullet points would you like to cover next?
Well, so I started like thinking about a lot of stuff, but I think the most important thing that people have to realize is like, do a lot of damage. As a healer, like, okay, I want you to be perfect and dodge everything, but look, like, I pug keys all the time, and there are so many people in, like, you know, the pretty high key range, like 14 to 17, 18, like, these aren't, like, total, you know, beginners, and they're just not doing the damage that they should with their gear. Like, these are people where if they did their rotation better, they would be doing a lot more damage. And as a healer, you need to kill stuff. Like, ideally, right, you can talk all this about pride and bark skin and health potion, but if the pride dies 15 seconds faster because you're gaming hardcore, it don't matter, you know? It doesn't matter if you even press bark skin, as opposed to, like, letting the pride live 15 more seconds, but then pressing your bark skin at the right time, you know? So this stuff is important and it's good to think about, but at the end of the day, like, your job is important, and you shouldn't be like massively trying to sacrifice things that you're doing just to like, oh, let me be a little bit better for the healer. And that's why it's like kind of a scary thing to talk about. Like, think about, okay, let's say you have a boss fight or like a pride fight or whatever. Would I rather be in it for 1 minute with a bunch of monkeys who are just standing in random stuff and like taking random avoidable damage? Or would I rather have a 1.5 minute fight with all these like perfect angels that are dodging everything? It's like, I'd rather just kill it in 1 minute. Let me just pull the boss, blow all my CDs and live, right? Because even like as you get into higher keys, even if you're dodging everything, you're still taking so much damage. Like on the first or second or third or fourth boss of Sanguine Depths, you know, like every single one of those bosses, like, you know, those are hard. Like that needs to die. Like the faster that you kill stuff, the better it is. So yeah, there's all this other stuff that matters, but like, and it's tank too, right? Like as a tank, you can run around and, I take no damage as a tank because I'm leaping around in kite meta, blah, blah, blah. But like at some point you need to stop in flame patch, and you need to stop and like help your team do damage. And like, I would much rather the pack die. Like the best defense is a good offense or whatever. Isn't that like a thing? Like that's very, very true. And that's like part of the reason, and we're not talking about like healer stuff, but like that's why Ashen Hollow is so good. because as a healer, you drop Ashen Hollow, you're doing 8k DPS, 9k DPS, and the boss dies 30 seconds earlier than any other healer. And it's like, it doesn't matter as a pally if you don't have to use your cooldowns to heal, because the boss does one wave of mechanics and you pop Devo and then you kill it,
I mean, that's just also knowing your job. Like, I mean, that's why boomies don't fucking want to heart heal a Pride, because they would rather kill the Pride 15 seconds faster. But being able to delay the Pride sometimes is better than killing it slightly faster by doing damage the full time. So you have to like weigh your options and really understand like what your job is in that group at that moment. But doing more damage and making the pull, the trash pack, the boss take, like you said, 20, 15 seconds fewer, rather than just like trying to support your healer at every given moment, you'd absolutely just blast the whole entire time.
I think, and people ask me this question in stream a lot. They're like, would you rather play with somebody who has good mechanics or good damage? Especially in the context of raiding, people talk about that. But I think that, it's, both. I mean, you do kind of need both, but there's this kind of subset of people that kind of love to think about how good mechanical players they are and, sacrifice damage to do that. And you can't really do that profitably.
Call them out by name.
Well,
you just can't take any of those players like too far in either direction. They got to be somewhere in the middle between those two values that they're trying to achieve.
I mean, it's a question of like, when do you sacrifice stuff for one or the other, right? There's ways you can sacrifice damage for survivability, right? Like as a rogue, you've got Crimson Vial, Feint. Those cost you energy, but they heal you, right? So like that's a trade-off of damage for survivability. And like, if you press those things too often, if you press those things on a Pride at 2 stacks, unless there's a lot of other mobs spawning when the Pride came out, like that can make sense, but otherwise that's probably not a profitable trade. And similarly, there's ways you can trade your defense for offense on a lot of specs as well, right? Like you can save your Barkskin or your Cloak of Shadows for if you get hit with something, or you can use your Cloak of Shadows to stand in a boss mechanic and do damage for an extra 5 seconds, right? And that's like...
Pretzel, is that you?
Well, I mean, that's something that, that saves you time. If you can do that safely, like if you can do that and then not need it, that is good. And there's not a one-size-fits-all answer to whether you should do that, but the best players are the ones that do that and never get punished for it.
Hey, so. Growl, why are you playing Holy Paladin this season whenever Resto Shaman does more healing?
Jeez. It's just too good. Like, the saddest part about this is people ask me, like, why do you play Priest in Necrotic Wake? And it's like, well, because it's our only Kyrian in the group, and we need the dungeon buff. And then some people are like, well, how come you play Holy Paladin in Spires then? And I thought about it, I'm like, well, Paladin is just that much better than Priest that I would rather just have a Paladin with no dungeon buffs than have a Priest with the damage buffs. And it's like, it's not even a statement about Priest, really. It's just kind of like an unfortunate state of the game right now that Paladin is just that good for, doing so much damage and like speeding up the run that you don't even need the dungeon buffs. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, let me give this straight. I love Paladin. Like, I have a lot of fun playing it. It's really unfortunate that I sort of like branded and spent a lot of time playing all the different healers, and I have all these people that love like Holy Priest and Resto Shaman and Druid in my chat, and then I'm like, all right guys, here I am, I'm just a Paladin now. And then it's like fragility. I feel like half of my stream chat is just everyone checking in on my stream just hoping one day I'll play that healer again, and they just put a sad face, wish you played Druid in my chat, and then log off and then go cry in their bed. It's like it makes me feel terrible. Like, I don't like it, but I really enjoy playing Paladin. Paladin's fun. I do like it.
I mean, being a good multi-classer like yourself, you're going to get that no matter what, right? Even if you played Holy Priest for the entire season, everyone would be like, when are you going to play Druid again? When are you going to play Shaman again?
And I guarantee you'll get when you're going to play Paladin again as well as soon as you stop playing that. So
that is true.
There's no escaping it.
Then all the Paladin refugees are just going to go to Ellismir's chat and be like, hey, Ellismir, I see you're playing Kyrian Paladin in patch 9.3. Is it the best? And Ellismir's just sitting there like, man, I wish I was playing Vinthier again back in 9.0.
Jeez. Every time I hear Ellismir talk about Kyrian H-Pal, I just like hear him talk, and then I see like in the back of my head like the Among Us screen where it says like, you are the imposter. It's just like, okay, buddy. Like, yeah, Kyrian H-Pal is real good. Good try.
You're getting marinated. Vote him out. Yeah. Okay, last bit on this main topic is about like healer jobs or responsibilities. So like Miss Saturna Scythe doing the maze, clicking the lantern, doing the Venthyr stuff in those 2 dungeons, managing like pulling certain trash mobs that the healer sometimes runs and goes and do.
Swapping covenants because they need to.
True. How do you help the healer in these spots where they do have kind of like when they're doing the mist maze, for example? How's that? What's something that DPS players or tank players can do? What should they do when they know that's happening, basically?
Yeah, so like going back to the initial thing about doing damage, right? As a DP, like as a healer, I don't want you following me around like kissing my V, like, oh, let me do the maze, let me do this, oh, let me pull stuff, right? Like I don't want you to do bear damage. I want you to kill stuff. But at the same time, like there are situations where you may need help, and like most of the time, DPS players are willing to help, right? But they're not just gonna sit there and walk around and randomly do stuff for you because they're gonna do bear damage. And so I think as you get higher up, the important part is the communication, right? Of like, hey, like I need to drink right now. Like, can you grab the Stoneborn for me? Or like, this pack is really hard. Or, you know, can you just go through the maze stuff real quick and I'll solve it? You know, and a lot of times people are willing to do that, right? Like if you ask a Boomy to do that, they're not going to say no, but like by default, they're not just going to run around. I mean, I guess maybe
and they
some
shouldn't.
Boomies do, but
they shouldn't either. By
yeah,
default.
they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's my point.
Don't
It's like
fucking do that.
There's a level of communication that you kind of need to ask. Like it's hard because you just might not have the experience, right? But once you get the experience, you know when to ask for help and when things need to happen. You know, like any of those jobs, like you can do, but you can't always do. It's hard in Pugs though, right? Because you don't have that level of communication, but at the same time, like you can sort of use that as a means to train your like situational awareness of like, okay, well, I'm gonna watch out for those things, right? Like let's say a healer needs to wait back and drink or whatever. Like if you're paying attention to your healer's mana and stuff, you realize, okay, they're back there, like let me start the maze, and like, you know, if you're using the add-on helper or whatever, you can get 2 of them, right? Or oh, they need to drink real quick, like I can just pull the Stoneborn or whatever. Like I'll even like as a Boomy, like let me throw a regrowth and a rejuve on the tank as they run in, because the healer's, you know, 2 screens back or whatever drinking. It's like just paying attention to those sorts of things. And like, you know, like we talk a lot about, people mention, oh, Junkrat never talks, how do you deal with it when Junkrat never talks? It's like, well, in a lot of ways it's sort of like in a weird way helped us, right? Because we sort of have that awareness of like paying attention to Junkrat, and then at the same time Junkrat knows to do stuff and we learn to trust the stuff that she does. And it's like, well, these things get done and everyone pays attention more, and if anything it like might even clear comms a little bit, you know, like knowing that the things are being done. And not talking can be just as much a good training ground for practice as, you know, communicating and always saying everything.
I think being predictable is kind of the thing that you want to, like, in a group. You want to be able to, ideally you're not just kind of YOLOing it every time, but like you start to know and being able to, like, there are these situations where there's these pulls where you're like, okay, I know the Boomy's about to do this, I know this is going to be the next global, like I know that this is going to happen here. You see like a cast kind of start to something slightly wrong start to happen, and you like know the rogue's about to kidney it or whatever. Those sorts of things, once you play with the group enough, you do really develop kind of an instinct for who's going to solve which problem, who's the first in line to handle each thing.
Yeah. Growl, I have a question. So how has drinking been this expansion since they changed it to be infinitely worse? Or is it just like masked by Pride right now?
It's like hard because a lot of the healers have it very, very differently. So it's definitely masked some by Pride. I think bosses especially, right? Like a lot of times you just don't care about mana for bosses because number one, you don't need to drink before the boss because you have the Pride. And then once the Pride, you know, then you have the Pride for the whole boss, and you're just like, a lot of what you can do is just spam mana at the start, like during the Pride, and not have to spend any cooldowns. And then once the Pride starts to run out, that's when you start blasting your cooldowns, and then the boss is dead. So it's hard to know how much it masks it, but it definitely does a little bit. And it depends on the healer a lot too. Like Paladin doesn't really need to drink very often. So not only are you saving so much time because you do so much damage, but you also don't have to wait. And you know, when I was playing Disc Priest, that was one of the things we noticed, is it felt great sometimes, but other times, like Sanguine Depths, for example, where it's just like so much group damage constantly, and you're constantly having to drink, and it's like we're just losing time, you know, waiting 5 seconds for a healer to drink. Like it's impossible for a healer to make up that much time unless you're a Holy Paladin. So it depends a lot on the healer, and I think we'll see, right? The only way to really know is we'll see when Pride goes away. They've done a really good job this expansion of fixing stuff. Obviously, there's still some bosses or some trash packs that have problems, but like in BFA, stuff would literally sit for 2 years being ridiculous. And I think they've already fixed a lot of the big problems now. And I hope they continue to sort of realize okay, the next season starts. Let's say that the Anima Power Torghast Mythic Plus season or whatever isn't as powerful as Pride, and the bosses start getting hard. Like, hopefully they step in and realize, like, okay, maybe this boss needs another round of nerfs, or like there's a few bosses that come to mind, like Hakar, like the last boss of Necrotic Wake, where you think like, this is actually a really, really rough boss. Not having Fish Feast is like kind of annoying though. Like, as a healer,
so
I'm
sad.
a support role. I'm a support role, and like I want to do things that help enabling my team. And there's nothing more like disheartening as a healer to be like, all right, all you guys just have to stop and do nothing and wait for me. Like, that's one of the worst feelings as a healer in a Mythic Plus. And I understand, like, okay, I understand why it's a thing, and like conserving mana, and like there's a whole area of depth and skill to that. So I'm not saying completely, oh, they need to bring Fish Feast back or whatever, but it definitely feels a lot worse in those situations where I need to drink.
I mean, I think they should have just changed water to be exactly like Fish Feasts, as opposed to making you drink Fish Feasts the whole entire time. But then they went the opposite way with fucking drinking and made you just PvP drink every single time.
Yeah, well, that's the other problem too, is it's PvP drinking. So like,
you can't get, like,
for example, let's say you're about to shroud, right? And it's like, well, at the start, right at the end of the pull, I'm spamming my drink button. And ideally, I just want to sit here and I don't want to shroud first, right? But what happens when you kill the pack? Everyone immediately just shrouds and mounts and starts running. And then it's
they're
like,
gone.
I do 3 seconds of drink, and then I have to get up, and then I have to mount, and then I have to explain, okay, wait. And then you start getting into this point where like, okay, well, maybe it's not even worth drinking at the end of this pack. Let me just wait till the end of the shroud to drink. And it's definitely a different dynamic. It's not terrible, and it adds some more thought to healing in dungeons and like thinking about mana, but it's just unfortunate that the most mana efficient healer in Paladin is also the most everything efficient healer right now.
All right, on that note, let's move on to our questions and answers to close out the show. But first, we get to thank our supporters over at the Patreon. Also, I want to shout out the Discord, also the Titanforge Podcast Discord. There's been a lot of like keys getting run in there, so there's some events as well, Mimosas and M+ events that happen in there from time to time.
Yeah, check out the Show Questions channel for those announcements.
Yeah. So without further ado, let us do the reading of the Patreon names, where we got some wild ones this week. Up first is Paul of US Proudmore. Then sees the means of acquiring hot Venthyr GFs and redistribute them to the 99%. Redistribute the IO. Comrade Delete DH has seized the means of IO production. Seize combustion and redistribute the meta to the 96%. Ja. Dratnos' Dino Pillow. Chromed. Trekkie. The Marshare. Regulus. Never Nude. Chewy. Yumytv Growl, aka young upcoming M+ YouTuber, teaching various groups regarding overcoming weekly low keys. ZivXX, Seni, Hot Venthyr Holy Pally GF, Necris, Tankdill, Nevuk, Sinmora, Eevee, Oh God, Please Buff Frosty K in PvE, Stevenson, Love the Constantinople Bit, Take Light of the Protector and Frenzied Regen off the GCD, No Trick, I Scheduled a Tettle's Flame, Sire Dematicus, Sean, Seize the means of timing a key and redistribute the IO, Get your vaccine for free 5G cell access after installation and update period. That's me in a couple hours.
Ooh, me in a couple days.
Ooh, nice. We'll send foot pics for Ellie Shaman coaching. We are praying Hanny will pump in 9.1. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. The Titanforge podcast crew is still hopeful Hanny is going to eventually pump in Shadowlands.
Man.
Gruesome. Stratos Raptor Piss. The Bourgeoisie owns both the IO and the means of IO production. M Sanity. Canyon and Moon Sonara of Emerald Dream Division 7 and Area 52 Scraw. Xena. Rogue is now good enough for Prague, but still bad enough to be sat for SLG. Bless up. Red Color. Some Zero of US Tichondrius has defeated Sire Denathrius. YouTube.com/Workbringer. Morty died 3 times to mechanics this week. Ahara of US Proudmore. Koze's mythic team is trash cans and not trash cans. And Gallic.
So, Growl, as part of the 1%, do you feel like you're holding the IO hostage and that you should redistribute it? Or do you think that it's just like the rich get richer kind of phenomenon where you just continue to oppress those who are beneath you and just rule over them, forcing them to watch your YouTube videos for maybe one small droplet of IO?
I try and spread the love, all right?
Like,
Growl...
there's some studies that if you watch my stream and watch my YouTube, you're guaranteed 100%. 9 out of 10 doctors of IO agree that your IO goes up if you watch my stream.
10 out of 10 dorkies.
The biggest problem is when people come to my stream and ask questions, and my answer is usually just like, you suck. And then it's like, some people it doesn't go well, but that's really the path to IO, is realizing that you suck. Sometimes I feel bad when it's like, I give them that answer and then I click on their name and it's like, they've been following you for 3 minutes. And I'm like, oh, maybe that isn't the best first impression for me to give them.
How do you feel about whenever you take your talents to pug keys and really redistribute the IO?
Jeez, I try to. I make it a point when I pug keys, like, it's not content. I mean, all right. For me, it's content to try and find like keys, but I mean, it's like both, right? Like, okay, I can easily. I was talking to Tettles about this the other day. It's like, if you go into Group Finder during a bad week, there's 2 different like classes. There's the upper class of Mythic Plus, and they're in all of the Halls keys and Miss keys. Yeah. All the like 2KIO, 3KIO players, they're all just farming out all the 15 Miss key for their weekly. But then if you want to go to the real lower class, you go to like the Spires, the Plague Falls, Theater of Pain, Sanguine Depths. Like, that's where you really, if you want to help the lower class, like, that's where you go to do your weeklies. And I try and do that whenever I can. And it always feels good when I see someone get the KSM achievement or whatever, and it's like, you know, bolstering necrotic beguiling or whatever weeks there are.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
All right, our first question comes from Durandal in Discord, who asks, around what key level would you say that skipping Pride kicks in? 20, 21? I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on your group, your comp, your skill level.
Yeah, so in theory, it's the same percentage benefit at any key level, assuming your damage is scaling with the key level as well. In practice, though, at the lower keys that you're beating by more, the Pride's health is less of a cost than the buff it gives you, right, to your damage. Yeah, I mean, as you start getting to those higher level keys, there are ones that I think are like always profitable to skip, like the last one in Halls of Atonement, for instance. If you can skip that thing, you're basically always making time off that.
Yeah, for sure.
But the other ones,
it's about like risk reward too. You gotta weigh in, like, do I want to spend time progressing skipping prides with this group of people? Like, if we're going to keep playing and push higher in the future, then yes, probably for sure. Because if you're going to want to do 23, 24s, then you're going to have to do it eventually, and you might as well start practicing doing that now, because it is pretty intricate, and affixes change how it works week to week too, and so you want to get going, like, teaching everyone how to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well. Is like, is this a weekly key? Is this a group you're ever going to see ever again? Versus if not, because there's a good chance that you will fail on a lot of pride skips as you are trying to learn them. The way that it works, for those who don't know, is you hit your invis pot. As soon as you drop combat, you hit your invis pot, and everybody's walking away from the pride, and everybody stands at the same spot as the pride spawns. If somebody, like, people often try and cheat ahead of the group, but if you do that and then it spawns off you, you're screwing the whole skip. So that's not good.
Yeah. You also can't have any debuffs that pull you out of stealth. You can't have like anything happening that'll pull anybody out of stealth, because if one person does, then that'll trigger combat on everybody else eventually. Most likely.
Yeah. You do, yeah. So that means that often, like, if you're doing it off of a pull, you want to make sure that, like, you're kicking stuff as the pull is dying. You have the mob, like, often stunned even as the pack is dying, so that nothing weird is going on. Sometimes the healer needs to not heal for like 3 seconds before the pull is over as well. So they can drop combat for these too. So these are all things to try and keep in mind if you are going to try and skip prides. But it's a good strategy if you can.
Why did somebody say Growl can't have consecration down? Is there a story behind that?
Oh my god! I mean, there's a story in every key that we do. Like, consecration, it's your highest damage button. It costs no mana, and you press it every 10 seconds. Like, you just, as Holy Paladin, you just are wired to, you see, okay, consecration, the entire key, and then it's like, we had one time when we were skipping a pride, and like there was just one raptor with like 100 health left, and I dropped consecration, and Dorky's just like, what the fuck is that consecration? I'm just like, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm sorry, it's just a habit. But like, I think if you're a coordinated group, I think you should skip prides, or at least do it sometimes, because like here's the thing, right? You never know when you're going to be in a scenario where you need to skip a pride, just time a key. And it's like, if you're that group that never tries, and then it's like, oh, we need, like Dratno said, the one at the end of halls, let's say you have a certain amount of time and you don't have time to do both. If you never tried to skip a pride ever with your group, and then it's like, all right, let's just try it this time, guys. And it's like, well, I'm a big believer of just doing things to try and get better at the game and learn. So like, if you're a coordinated group doing 17s, why the hell not? Like, at least try and skip a few and learn. But like in general, you shouldn't even be thinking about it unless you're a group that is all on the same page and all communicating, ideally in voice comms, and you have an understanding of how it works, right? You know that you can't leave anything that's going to put you in combat. You know that you can't take damage. You know that you need to use invis pots and you can't use like vanish or whatever. Like, you need to know what's going on and be in a coordinated group before you think about doing it.
All right, next question is for Growl. Divine Toll or Ashen Hallow? That's the question.
Ashen Hollow. That's the easiest question.
I don't know. If we look at the statistics on player Covenant participation, the overwhelming majority have chosen Divine Toll for Holy Pallies. What's your response to that?
So as like a serious note, Divine Toll is great. Divine Toll is really good. A lot of people say, I need Divine Toll because my teammates are monkeys. Really, it's actually the opposite. Divine Toll helps you if you're the monkey healer. If you don't have the experience to know like how to line up all your cooldowns and you just want that 1 minute cooldown emergency button to heal everyone, it's great, right? I'm not saying like, oh, play it if you suck, but I'm saying like, it's not so much, oh, you need a coordinated group to make use out of it. That's like a big misnomer is, oh, you need a coordinated group to play Venthyr. It's more about your skill actually as a healer. If you aren't really comfortable with the dungeons and like knowing the mechanics and you just need a button that'll push everyone's health bar up, which Paladin doesn't have that button. You don't have any of those buttons as Paladin. So if you have that and you probably like Kyrion's great. Kyrion's really good. But I mean, there's a reason that literally everybody in high keys plays Venthyr. It's good. And it's great in low keys too. Like when you do low keys, everyone knows this feeling when you pug 15s where either the route sucks and everyone's pulling one pack at a time, or people are monkeys and they're side pulling stuff. And it's like everyone's boss damage is bad and no one kills prides. Like everyone knows the pug life in the 15 to like 17 range. And when you're a Holy Pally that's Venthyr and you can do 4k DPS overall and you can just delete bosses and stuff, like it's so good. You can't tell me that Venthyr Holy Pally is not good in low pugs. Like you just completely carry. Like there's so many pug keys that I've done where it's like people are doing literally 4k overall DPS or like 3.5k overall DPS, but it's like
fucking top of the meters.
So am I on a Pally, you know? And it's like we'll time the key by a minute and a half because we have 14 deaths and we went 10% over count and we have a warlock that's 200 item level. And it's like these are the situations where, oh, I just wish I had Divine Toll to heal everyone. Like there's no amount of healing that'll heal that amount of stupid. And like sometimes you just need damage to time the key.
Damn.
All right, next question. How does Growl feel about trolling pugs and making 1.5k IO players do a 25 mists during Necrotic Bolstering Week?
Ooh, that might be a preview to a video. So I was trolling Group Finder one day. Okay, I was helping Group Finder, and someone made a group, bring Miss Key our carry. So I said, okay, I have a Miss Key, and I joined their group. I think it was a guild or people. Yeah, and they needed a healer. I thought it was great. And it was a 26, unfortunately, and it was Tyrannical Necrotic Bolstering. And I think they enjoyed it. They wanted, because like a lot of, let's say those are people who, I think their max key was like 18 or whatever. Like, how often do they get to fight like 25 Tyrannical first boss or like 25 Tyrannical Pride? So that's actually, I might actually make a video about that. It was really, really fun.
I was recently perusing the competitive WoW subreddit, and I was reading up on the toxicity that's stemming in the World of Warcraft Mythic Plus community. And one of the stories in the story time that I was reading about was some really, really stubborn and entitled ass healer who zoned into a key where a group was offering up a free carry to anybody who had a Mists key, and he slotted in his 26 Mists of Tyrannus Scythe. Would you happen to know anything about that, Growl?
Yeah, luckily I have my main Reddit detective force that is led by Evade. He's always reading the competitive WoW subreddit to watch out for these issues, and we squashed that thread pretty quick. So he's always looking out for me. So no such thread existed. If you saw that, it was you won't be able to find it anymore.
Love that.
All right. Next one comes from VGL Puppy 2, who asks, how best can I look at the numbers to maximize my output?
Oh God.
I think related to this is how do they best build for damage?
I think a lot of people to randomly answer the question seriously. A lot of times healer damage just comes from gear. Like if you're just running DPS trinkets, DPS items, like none of the healer masteries contribute to damage. So just the less mastery you have, the more damage you do. Just like itemizing for damage and pressing your buttons, like none of the healer rotations are hard. And if you just press your buttons, and like there's a lot of little intricacies you could do, but ultimately like, okay, as Holy Paladin, if your 2 highest buttons are Ashen Hollow and Consecrate, like there's no skill, you know what I mean? Like the more versatility and the more item level and intellect that you have, the more your Consecrate's gonna do. So like the reason my Resto Shaman does so much damage is because it's pure haste verse, and I use the damage Lego, I use damage trinkets. Like if you want to do damage as a healer, you just have to run damage gear, and that's not always necessarily the right answer, but.
What is it like gearing completely for damage in terms of like legendaries, covenant, and everything like that? Whenever there is a fucking healer affix, like prideful, they literally designed the seasonal affix to be a healer affix, and you're playing full damage again.
Here's a great clip of Ellismere.
I love this clip. This clip is
but
so
anyway,
good.
To answer that question, like you have to limit test. Like a lot of times in BFA, I had 2 different item sets. I had 1 healer damage set and then 1 healer healing set. And a lot of my biggest breakthroughs in like learning to do more damage was when I had the damage set on for like a joke key or like some certain key that didn't need healing. Then I accidentally go into a really, really hard to heal key with the set that has no healing. And I'm just like, oh God. And you start to learn like, okay, it's definitely harder, but I can make this work. And then the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. It's like sort of the same about like Kyrian versus Venthyr H-Pal, right? Like you definitely feel safer having that Kyrian Divine Toll button every single pack when things go wrong. But like the only way you're going to know how to heal a key without it is to not have it and go into a key with Venthyr. So you sort of have to try it. I think a lot of the stuff around Prideful, like invising Pride and using certain buffs for Pride, like the Sanguine Depths Vases and the Halls Gargoyles and like heart healing, like all that stuff has gotten around Pride a little bit. A lot of people thought Pride was going to like be the gatekeeper, and it kind of was for some time, but now that people have gotten really, really good at getting around it, like you don't need that much healing for Pride. I mean, it's still really, really hard, but it's not impossibly hard.
What's this clip? Should we watch this?
You have to have audio.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You need audio for
it.
So
this is me. I was watching Ellismere's stream during the world first 27 Plaguefall attempt.
Okay.
World first 27 Plaguefall attempt. I was watching Ellismere's stream. This is my stream watching.
They have plenty of time. This is where, oh wow, Nerf is getting hit hard. Ellismere throws the Tuft on him. He still has cheat. Wow, that Tuft immediately tops him. That's a crazy trinket when it crits. What, did Ellismere just mouse over the healing meter to see how much the Tuft healed for?
He just hovered
in a
over
27. Come on, focus.
Love that line.
Focus.
Happens like when I scroll over.
He did absolutely do that though.
Yeah. He had to know where he stood.
He had to know how much that Tuft healed for. He's like, holy shit, that was a big heal. And he just mouses over the meters and like the final lap of the world first.
All right, that owns. And with that is the end of our show this week. Thanks so much for joining us, Growl. Where can people find you if they would like to consume your content?
Oh, I am Yumytv everywhere, sort of, on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch.
Excellent.
I have a nice Discord too. I don't want to steal the Titanforge Podcast
No, go for it.
Thunder Discord, but the community has been growing. I like randomly did a thing where I made a channel and I started reviewing people's videos that heal. And it sort of like blew up to the point where it's like almost self-sustainable now, which is like so awesome. Like people will post videos and then other people will watch them and like give feedback, which is like very, very awesome. There's a lot of there's a lot of like very productive conversation and like a lot of like random. Well, there's a secret sub-only channel, but that's just like mostly like cat pictures and like memes and stuff. And then all the really good stuff is like in the general chat and the video chat or whatever.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I wasn't too boring.
Thanks so much.
Of course not, man.
We're always happy to talk to you. I think it's very, very informative. That is the end of our show, though. We will be back. We will let you know on Twitter when we'll be back next, actually, because there's some stuff happening this month over some weekends. So we might move to some weekday stuff. We actually have to figure that out internally. So
yeah, there's like a KSM event, and then there's the
Mythic Plus Pro-Am thing as well, right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
So like 3 of the weekends this month have M Plus stuff on them.
What all are you competing in this month, Growl? What all are you doing? Because you guys are doing KSM as well, right?
So we have KSM and we have Great Push. We were thinking about doing the
Nice.
Pro-Am thing, but I'm just lazy and I just didn't get back with him in time. So maybe Dorky might be in that. I'm not in that because I'm just dumb and yeah. But so we're doing the Great Push thing with Yoda. I think we're doing KSM with Yoda too, but I'm not 100% sure because we didn't have the 100% okay with Yoda before we signed. Like the KSM signups were a lot earlier. Our team in the Great Push, I think, does the bear stream, and in KSM it is the candle holders.
The candle holders? What is that from?
It was a reference to Max saying that Ellismir's group won't hold a candle to
Oh, you're flaming him. I see.
That owns. Okay. Well, good luck. Good luck in all your tournaments and stuff, and all your M Plus this month. Should be an exciting month for M Plus esports. So hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon. And
Thanks a lot, friends. I
that's the end of our show.
appreciate you.
Bye, everybody.